and I'll be chairing this meeting. May I remind everyone this is a meeting in public. It's not a public meeting. Only members of the public who have registered to speak are allowed to do so, and I'll call on them to speak during the appropriate agenda item. The meeting is being held in our offices in Abbey House, Abingdon. Committee members are here in person, but officers and speakers are able to join remotely. The system allows councillors who are unable to attend in person to contribute to the meeting, but only councillors who are present in the room are allowed to vote. The meeting is being streamed live on the council's YouTube channel for public viewing. Some procedural matters. For speakers and members of the public who join remotely, please ensure that your microphone is muted and your camera is switched off for the duration of the meeting until you are called to speak. The Planning Committee is a decision-making committee of the Council. It's important that a set procedure is followed. All committee members have received a full report on each planning application, either in paper or electronically, and it should be noted that committee members and officers may be using electronic devices for reference throughout the meeting. For each application, we will first hear from the planning officer, followed by the parish or town council, then objectors, supporters and local members. Each group will have 5 minutes to speak to the committee, after which members may ask questions of the speaker. The committee may then ask questions of clarification of the planning officer. The committee will then debate and vote on the application. Councillors wishing to ask a question or participate in the debate are asked to indicate this by alerting myself or officers by raising a hand. Voting will be by show of hands. Members, please raise your hand clearly and keep it raised to allow a count to take place. If it is unclear how members are voting through a show of hands, I will ask the clerk to undertake a roll call of those present and how they are voting. Well, there are a few housekeeping announcements. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the corridor immediately to the right of this meeting room, and then go to assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. The Democratic Services officer present will assist you. Can everyone please ensure that their mobile phone is switched to silent or switched off during the meeting? Members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after their application has been heard are welcome to do so by the front door reception. When the meeting is finished, I will ask for confirmation that the live stream has ended. At that point, please leave the meeting and make your way out of the room, remembering to sign out as you leave. As item 1 on the agenda, item 2 on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Axel MacDonald and Councillor Christian Toppin.
Okay. Minutes of previous meeting. Do we have minutes?
Unfortunately, the minutes from the 8th of October are not available as yet, so they need to be agreed at the next meeting.
Thank you. I always get this wrong. Declaration of interest. To receive any declaration of disposal, pecuniary interest, registered interest, and non-registered interest of any conflict of interest in respect of items to the agenda for this meeting. Hold on. I see none from the committee, but I believe that our clerk has it.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have an interest on item 11, which is Queen's Avenue in Wallingford. I will be, as a personal interest, I will be leaving the meeting room.
Yes, thank you. Urgent business. Receive notification of the others which the chair determines shall be considered as urgent business.
None, Chair.
No by urgent business. Okay, so we'll go to the planning applications. And the first one on the agenda tonight is B24 S1287, land to the rear of the paddock, Floric Mill Way, Chenna, and the planning officer is Paul Lucas. Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Chair. This is a hybrid application seeking full planning permission for the erection of 2 self-custom built dwellings and outline planning permission for 2 self-custom built dwellings, with all matters reserved except for access. Your officers consider that the proposal would extend the existing built-up limits of the settlement in a northwesterly direction, and therefore in that respect would conflict with the development plan housing distribution strategy as discussed in paragraph 7.2 to 7.6 of the report. As outlined in paragraph 7.7 to 7.11 of the report, your officers consider that the visual impacts of the proposed development on the character and appearance of the surrounding area would be acceptable. Your officers consider that the interrelationship between the proposed dwellings and their closest neighbours would be acceptable in respect of light, outlook and privacy, as covered in paragraph 7.12 to 7.14 of the report. The proposed outdoor amenity space would accord with the design guide recommended standards for dwellings of this size. In the expert opinion of the local highway authority, the proposed access and parking arrangements would not give rise to conditions prejudicial to highway and pedestrian safety as outlined at paragraph 7.15 and 7.16 of the report. The NPPG states that decision makers should not give way to local policy which requires biodiversity net gains for types of development which would now be exempt under the statutory framework. Your officers consider that the ecological impact of the proposed development would be adequately mitigated through the imposition of planning conditions to secure a minimum of no net loss of biodiversity, as set out in paragraph 7.17 to 7.20 of the report. Your officers consider that in this case it would not be reasonable to impose a specific housing mix. This is because self and custom build housing permissions would need to meet the requirements of the self custom builders, and therefore the market needs is distinct from typical market housing. Matters relating to drainage, landscaping and carbon reduction could be dealt with through the recommended conditions to the satisfaction of the relevant specialist officers. Council cannot presently demonstrate a 5-year deliverable supply of housing. Council also has a shortfall in its duty to provide sufficient self-build or custom-build housing to meet the demand on the register. This means that the tilted balance at PPF paragraph 11D applies. Having applied a balancing exercise of paragraphs 9.3 to 9.8 of the report, your officers consider the degree of conflict with the development plan and the level of harm would be limited. In this case, the adverse impact of allowing development would not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, and the presumption in favour of sustainable development would apply. Your officers recommend that the committee delegate the granting of full and outline planning permission to the head of planning, subject to the completion of a legal agreement to secure the construction and occupation of the dwellings as self-build or custom-build housing, and subject to the planning conditions listed in the report.
Thank you, Paul. We'll come back to you in a moment, I'm sure. Yeah, okay. Right. I should point out this time, Chinnor Parish Council have not been able to send a representative for any of their items on the agenda, but they have sent reports which have been circulated to all committee members. Right. So the first speaker on this is the agent for this development, and it's Jake Collins. Jake, you have your 5 minutes starting from where you speak personally.
Chairman, members of the committee, seems slightly unnecessary for me to use 5 minutes, given that there are no objectors speaking. I'm mindful that we've just heard that you've had some representations from the parish council. I don't know exactly what they are, but I'm very happy to answer any questions that may arise from those submissions. The only thing for me to say really is that I would commend the recommendation to grant planning permission. All that said, I actually do believe you have a perfectly policy compliant scheme in front of you, given that the site is within and well within the boundaries of the Chinnor development boundary and neighbourhood plan, and it is delivering much needed self-built housing, the demand for which is greater than stipulated in the report. So on those basis, I'm happy to answer any questions and commend the recommendation to you. Thank you.
Short and sweet. Committee, have any questions? Councillor, sorry, the teeth won't work this evening. Councillor Albert.
I've only got one question actually. I've never seen this before. But why have we got 2 applications on one piece of land? Why isn't there just an application for 4 houses?
You effectively have one application for 4 houses. At the moment, 2 of the self-builders are known. So plots 2 and 4 are for the applicants for planning permission. So they're provided detail. We've got detailed plans and elevation of those plots. The other 2 plots have no self-build purchasers registered as yet. So they are in outline so that whoever that person is who comes forward can then design it to their own specification, which is a requirement of self-build.
Thank you. Councillor, you're anonymous to the cameras. Is that good? So you're anonymous to the cameras. The name tag's up there. Tim, is that? Oh, okay. Is that? Oh. Thank you. That's only there for that purpose, really, aren't we? Yeah. Okay. Any further questions?
I have a question.
Councillor Gordon Creed.
Thank you, Chair. In the Chinnan neighbourhood plan, this is designated as green space. It's not designated as development allocation. And it also will extend the built form of a village that has taken far in excess than is required from development over the last 10 years and is currently categorised as having no need for any houses whatsoever. So I just wondered, because looking at this, and we know from previous developers that then if this gets built, then the very large paddock which is next to it is then becoming in danger of becoming infill. And therefore, the boundary just keeps extending and
I'm
extending.
trying to see how that's relevant.
Yeah. But anyway, this is designated in the Chinnan neighbourhood plan as green space.
I think that's what the report said.
Yes. So and it will increase the build form of the villages. So it may be outside.
Are we into question? Because,
Okay. Yeah.
I'll just say,
Yes, I'm very happy to answer that. The land is not so defined as green space in the Chinnan neighbourhood plan. The site is holding within the Chinnan development boundary, which wraps along the northern and eastern boundaries of this site and excludes the paddock lands to the northeast, which is outside the boundary. My position on a matter of policy principle is that the neighbourhood plan accepts infill and windfall development within the development boundary. I don't believe this is necessarily infill development, but it is windfall development within the development boundary. And windfall development itself is not subject to a test in policy terms that refers to the built-up area. So the policy of the neighbourhood plan specifically allows windfall development within the development boundary, and that is what this is.
that's subtle.
Just a very simple question. Would you describe it as backland development? We've described it as windfall development. Would you describe it as backland development?
I would say part of the 2 or 3 of the plots are to the rear of existing dwellings, so therefore they are backland. But the Chinnan neighbourhood development plan doesn't refer to backland, it refers to either windfall or infill. It doesn't say anything about backland.
Any further questions? Well, thank you very much, Jack. That case, we go to the ward council. Do you wish to speak with ward council, or are you going to stay as committee members?
But for the way you phrase that question, I'll remain as a committee member.
Sorry?
The way you phrase that question, I shall remain as a committee member.
Yeah, I don't. Well, if you were to speak as a ward member, then the committee can ask you questions. That's the only real difference. And you are limited to 5 minutes. But it's just no.
I haven't prepared anything for that.
No. Leave it in the
council.
Leave it on the committee and get us through this meeting. Okay, we'll go back to Paul then for any questions for the officer. Councillor Norman.
So your paragraph. Sorry, I can't see you down there, but I assume you are down there.
Yes.
Paul, the paragraph 9.4 is about situations where the lack of 5-year housing land supply does not necessarily apply, and it says where the presumption of paragraph 11D, so that's the underlying, applies to applications, the adverse impact of allowing development that conflicts with the neighbourhood plan is likely to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, provided the following apply. And both of those do apply, as you have reported. So officers consider that the neighbourhood plan meets the above criteria. So that's a clear statement of situations where the tilted balance doesn't apply under 11D, where the neighbourhood plan conflicts with it. Would you agree with that so far?
No, it's a bit more nuanced than that. The tilted balance still applies, but you have to have regard to paragraph 14 in the balancing exercise. It doesn't remove 11D where it's engaged. It doesn't disengage it.
Yes, I see. Although it does say is likely to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So and then, I mean, because of the tilted balance, and particularly, I think, would I be right in saying that the lack of a sufficient supply of self-build plots is the key to why you've decided that the tilted balance applies in this case?
That's correct, yes.
That would be the primary reason.
Yes, yes.
And your view clearly is that outweighs the conflict with the neighbourhood plan.
Yeah, that's the matter of judgment officers have reached, yes.
And is it also a key point that this is within the neighbourhood plan boundary?
That is correct. It's within the Chinna development boundary. In fact, as opposed to, I think we have reference to a site next door where there's been an appeal dismissed. That is outside the development boundary. So officers came to, it didn't involve self-build either, but on that one, officers refused permission and the appeal's been dismissed because circumstances are different.
Thank you.
With regards to wait for the Chinna neighbourhood plan, so I hear your reasoning about the self-build element, but does the parish don't cite any requirement for that within their housing needs? And I just wondered, it just in the appeal that got dismissed, the neighbourhood plan carried full weight because it was outside the settlement boundary. Is there not any grounds? Chair, sorry, can I just interrupt one sec myself? I would like to speak on behalf of as a ward councillor here, rather than.
We're in debate now, so
Okay, but you didn't ask me at the time. But
I asked both of you questions.
So
we're in questions. We're not in debate yet. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So my query then is, in this case, does the Chinna Parish seem to think that it doesn't agree with some of their neighbourhood plan policies, which are in the report that they sent, but you're disagreeing with that? You're saying they're wrong.
Not quite. It's not quite as straightforward as that as planning seems to be, but it's a case of what officers have looked at is the level of harm. So what we've looked at is that we've come to the conclusion that here the level of there is a conflict with the neighbourhood plan, but we come to the conclusion that the conflict is a limited one, and then we've had to weigh that against the benefits of the proposal, which include the self-build, which is a district-wide element. So we have to look at that everywhere, and we've come to the conclusion that the benefits in this instance would outweigh the limited harm, notwithstanding the conflict that there's a conflict with the neighbourhood plan. So it's very much a judgment-based decision.
okay, we're still in questions. Again.
So sorry, can we just be crystal clear on what the conflict is? So it's not the development boundary, is it the fact that Chinna neighbourhood plan has an additional provision of 0 and this is more than 0, or is that, can we just be crystal clear about what the conflict is?
It's to do with extending the built limits.
So it's extending
within the boundary, but extending the built limits out.
Okay. I just wanted to clear.
Councillor Sandler.
So, and also for clarity, sorry, but is it, so it's not a designated area for development, is it? That's the point in the neighbourhood plan.
There's no allocation for housing on that land, but it is within the boundary. So
It's within the boundaries, yes, I'll accept that.
Yeah.
You've made that really clear,
Yeah.
but it's just that it's not a designated location in their development plan. So it's
not allocated for housing.
Correct. Yeah.
Councillor Norwood. Okay.
This may be outside of this current brief, but why would a parish draw a boundary that includes land that is not designated for development?
Right, I can't answer that.
You can't answer that. They have to. Councillor Kelly.
So all of these applications, these plots are for self-build, that's correct, isn't it?
That's correct.
And we've only got the agent says only 2 plots are sort of actually lined up with self-builders. If when we grant permission now for all 4 of the plots and the remaining 2, the self-builder never comes forward, Will the planning commission lapse within this, if within 3 years, those self-builders come forward?
Well, as I mentioned, that we'll also be looking to, before we can issue the permission, we'll be looking to entering into a legal agreement with various heads of terms there, which would be the element that secures the self-build. So it would be in breach of the requirements of that element. So if they wanted to deviate from that, they would need another permission.
Okay, thank you.
Right, are there any further questions? It's not an easy one, is it? I agree with that.
Sorry.
Just Paul explained it very well.
Yeah, so just to add to that, in terms of clarifying the point that was made there, that you have got a hybrid application before you. So the two that are full part of it is an outline, and therefore they'll have to submit the reserved matter effectively of that. But saying that if it doesn't, they don't come forward, and effectively that does it almost expire.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've been through all the speakers and questions. I'm looking for a motion.
I propose, unsurprisingly, that we vote against the officer's proposal to grant permission.
To be clear, it's not to grant permission, it's to
Well, to grant outline permission and
it's
preserve.
to delegate the head of planning commission. It's not we're not granting permission, we're delegating
Yeah.
to him the authority to give planning. But you don't want to do that. That's what you're saying.
I'm against that too.
Yeah. You've got reasons.
My reasons are that it's against policy age 16.
It's against what side?
Age 16.
Which that may not be correct now, I don't know. But it's against, it doesn't, it's a judgment that the self-build need across the county should outweigh the Chinner neighbourhood plan, which I don't agree with. I think the time and effort gone into Chinner's neighbourhood plan and how many times it's been discounted overridden by development. I disagree with the infrastructure answers. I don't think Thames Water's saying yes is.
We can't look back on what's happened in the past. It's
Yeah.
what's happened with this application, please.
It goes against Chinner, CHGP. Essentially all the lists that Chinner have listed, apart from
Sorry,
the CH8, CHC1, CHGP2, and
okay. Do we have a second for your motion? Councillor Sadler, wish to speak now or
No,
wish to debate?
actual.
Okay.
My right.
Right. Okay, it's over for debate. The proposal is to recommend refusal on the ground that it's against those paragraphs of the neighbourhood plan. Yeah, and you don't think the district need outweighs those plans. That's fair. Yeah,
not for
okay.
Chinner.
I think yeah. So we need to debate it. Is there any debate?
I'll speak against the motion, not necessarily with great joy, but clearly tilted balance in the 5-year land supply is a huge factor. It comes up in a lot of our decisions at the moment, and we have to be really mindful of. We've had other matters come before us, notably where there's a more significant conflict with the neighbourhood plan, and I know we've debated and acted quite strongly previously to protect neighbourhood plans, but this to me seems less of a conflict, because it is inside the defined development boundary. 7.4 in the report says that proposals for development inside the development boundary will be supported where they constitute sustainable development. So the kind of the objections for me bear less weight than some of the others that we see. So in this instance, somewhat grudgingly feel that we should support the officer's recommendation in light of tilted balance of our land supply.
Okay, thank you, councillor Higgins. Councillor Beale, did you wish to speak?
No, I was rubbing my head.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Keatsrowan,
Yeah, I think,
Kent.
with regret, I have to think that Councillor Higgins is probably correct in this instance, but I think we ought to put a marker down and say you don't have to roll over to the tilted balance every time. And we've got a whole stack of Chinner cases tonight. We've seen far worse, but there are far too many of them. I mean, it says here under Chinner Parish Council's objections that 43% of new development has already taken place since the start of the planned period in 2011, when only 15% was planned for in the current SOLP, that's actually a local plan. There's been no subsequent infrastructure supporting these new developments, and the current residents are suffering from this lack of foresight on the part of SODC planners. I think it's right to air that and say actually Chinner is being very hard done by the planning system, and there's no getting away from that. So that may not be a debate, but I think it's time we put a marker down and pointed this out.
Okay. Any further debate, councillor Roberts?
Just briefly, Chairman, I can't really see anything wrong with it at all. It's an infill piece of land. I follow what Ben said next door. When you look at the whole area, if you look at page 29, I thought actually we did ask for these numbers to be bigger. They haven't grown over the years. They seem to have shrunk even more. Anyway, on page 29, I honestly can't see the harm. I can't see any harm whatsoever with 4 houses. They've all got fairly big plots of land, but I'll be voted against the motion.
Okay. Any more debate? No further debate, so I go back to councillor Sadek.
So
Second.
Our parish councillor, Jackie Webb, I think it was, wrote this report and sent it through, and they've considered it very carefully, and they raised a number of relevant issues of infill residential development boundaries, sustainable homes, design, protection of habitats for significance, etc. And a few notable points I just want to bring out of this. I know we were sort of arguing about the relevance of it or whether it's even correct. Not a designated site for development is the key point that I picked up on. It extends the built limit to the northwest. And we shouldn't, extend the built limits of Chinner, certainly not backland anyway. Conflicts with the development plan, distribution, strategy, SOLP 2035, policy 812. There's no biodiversity net gain. And actually, Catherine very rightly pointed out, we shouldn't just keep on bending to this issue of the tilted balance and the primary housing demand supply. I know it's the legal position, but I don't think that Chinner should have to take the brunt, to be penalised, to have punitive action taken against them because SODC doesn't have a primary housing demand supply. It is just the wrong thing to do. It's just wrong. So that's why fundamentally, as ward councillors as we are, we feel Chinner's pain, and it's absolutely right that we should reject this.
Okay, thank you. I'll just check the point with Adrian. Yes. It said there was no B&G. Isn't that a condition?
No, because it's jumping into the sums, isn't it?
Because it's self-build.
Oh, self-build is exempt.
But there is no net loss.
No net loss. Councillor.
What was that point then? So because it's self-build, it's exempt from biodiversity net gain.
Yes.
That's legislation.
That's legislation. So there should be no net loss. I was just querying that myself because councillor started to raise it. I thought that's strange. Yeah. However, right. Okay, we'll move on for councillor Gordon Creed to sum up?
Well, I mean, as both my two councillors to my left have said, essentially Chinner has taken well above its designated need for the last 16 years, I would say. It's increased 40% with no infrastructure change whatsoever. It's a Victorian village. It's essentially now it's a dormitory town. If you attempt to drive along Lower Ignerd Way to get through Chinham, pretty much any time of the day now. I walked it the other day and I felt like I needed to be wearing a mask. The air quality was so bad because there is no flow. There's no flow for cars. There is no flow for people. It's dangerous for mums and buggies because there aren't pavements. Horses, it's lethal. There's a lot of riders who have to kind of get across to the Ridgeway at that point. So there's, every time it rains, sewage comes up through the pavement. People have water shortages. I mean, the imbalance between infrastructure, support and housing has been appalling. And it isn't fair that Chinner should have to keep being the brunt of developers taking advantage because it's not far outside of London and close to the train at Princess Risborough. But there are no active travel routes that are safe. It's a dormitory town. And I agree with the parish council's report that the highways officer, and I don't think anyone's actually been there to see what it's actually like. It is not safe in any way, shape or form. Adding more traffic to that tiny road with parking everywhere is just not safe. I mean, it's just not. Adding more volume there is inappropriate. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's
Thank
what
you.
I
We have a proposal
I
for-
have to do that. It's not
Yep.
very measured or succinct or full of bullet points, but it's the truth.
Right, we have a proposal for refusal on the grounds that we stated, against the Chinham neighbourhood plan, basically. All those in favour of the proposal, please show. 4, 5. All those against? That's 4, therefore it's refused.
Jen,
Really expensive one.
can I just say
Really expensive one.
the online site is down. Can't access the website. Has anyone got any papers? Best set of agenda pack or anything?
I can't get it wrong.
Say that again.
The website is down. I
Is it?
can't access the planning website.
So you haven't got your papers?
I haven't got
You
papers.
haven't got any papers because you're relying on that.
I can send you a copy through Teams if you want. It's too big to email, but I can send it across to you on Teams. That would work.
What's your email? To do that to my parliamentary account, which is it's tim.bearder@parliament.uk.
Right, we're going to move on. To P24.
So can I just, what were the reasons that was refused from?
We're just picking that up in terms of detail. We'll go back over the recordings for the details of that. But basically, be contrary to the neighbourhood plan, Chinham neighbourhood plan. That would be it probably.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was the ones that Ali. I sympathy with it, but I think you get to do take responsibility. That's just okay, we'll move on to, are you fine now, Tim? Nearly there.
No, I'm not fine. I can look at the presentation.
Yeah, okay. Okay, the second item on the agenda then is
Sorry, can you just check? People can just check the
yes, you've read the report, haven't you? Yes. Yeah.
Is it in the PDF?
B24 S3947.
Yeah.
Seven Delan Kroll Road, Henley on Thames. So the planning officer Simon Kitson. Simon, it's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Stone application. Stone application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a two-bed dwelling within an area of sloping land between number 7 and 9 Cromwell Road in Henley. Site does not fall within a designated conservation area or a national landscape. It's not within flood zone 2 or 3, but it is within a wide area identified as at risk of surface water flooding and karstic susceptibility. The report sets out in detail the case for granting approval. I will, however, highlight a few key points. This is the existing and proposed site plans. Sites within a sustainable location within the built-up confines of the town. In terms of the level of development, there would be a reasonable amount of amenity space for approximately 75 square metres to the rear, and the garden depth would exceed the recommended 10 metres under the design guide. Parking provision is considered acceptable in this location, as confirmed by the Highways Authority. These are the existing and proposed elevations showing the current gap between number 7 and 9 Cromwell Road. And these are the proposed front and rear elevations. The design is intended to address the narrowness of the plot and the topographical variations across the site. Officers do not consider the proposed form and detailing or the spacing between the dwellings to be out of keeping with the overall character of the area, which does encompass a range of property sizes and plot widths. This is considered there would be adequate visual separation from numbers 7 and 9. The proposed side elevations, the accommodation would be tiered to the rear with some excavation, taking account of the sloping site. Section. The drainage strategy. Notwithstanding the mapped ground conditions and the associated flood risk constraints, the drainage design follows extensive discussions and feedback from the council's specialist drainage engineer. Following his recommendations, multiple detailed technical reports were submitted, including site-specific percolation testing and geotechnical investigation. The drainage engineer is satisfied that the final drainage proposal is acceptable from a flood risk perspective, and officers accept this expert professional judgment. The proposal would still need to comply with all building regulations requirements, which include matters relating to the foundation design and structural stability. These aren't material planning considerations. Moreover, any party wall issues are also not material planning considerations. These are covered under other legislation. The agent has provided further diagrams illustrating the separating distances from the ground floor of the proposed dwelling to the first floor of number 22 Western Road. The distance to the directly facing first floor windows of the neighbouring property are considered acceptable, and their section demonstrates compliance with the 25-degree rule. In terms of putting this into context, I've got some photos. So this is the front of the site, from Cromwell Road. Number 7 is on the left and number 9 to the right. This is within the site, again viewed from the Cromwell Road side, looking towards the properties on Western Road to the rear. This is taken towards the rear of the site, looking towards number 22 in the middle. The image on the left is taken from within the site at ground level, and the image on the right is taken in an elevated position from the neighbour at number 7. These are some of the architectural styles along Cromwell Road. There are clear variations in forms, boundary distances, ridges, eaves heights. And this is number 18A Cromwell Road, which is referenced in the report. It's a similarly narrow property in close proximity to the site. Whilst there are clearly some key differences between the two schemes, this does demonstrate that the street scene can accommodate smaller, narrow properties directly adjacent to larger houses. This is the rear of number 7, looking towards the application site on the left. This is the view from the window openings at number 7. The main impacts are on secondary openings and rooms which do not serve primary living accommodation. We can't assign any material weight to the loss of light or outlook from these windows, including the landing. The BRE report accompanying the application concludes that the light levels to all normal habitable rooms would be within acceptable levels. This is the study referenced in the neighbour comments. The main outlook is across the neighbour's garden rather than the application site. This is the rear of the other neighbour at number 9, again looking towards the site. This gives you an impression of the relationship with the property on the other side. It's the neighbour's kitchen windows. Again, this room is served by multiple openings. The larger end window to the right provides the main outlook from this room and will be largely unaffected. Study of the neighbours living there. This is the view from number 22 Western Road to the rear. Proposed dwelling would be at mid-height between the two properties on the screen. There would be no visibility of the ground floor accommodation from this point and vice versa. Neighbours living room. This is the view from the neighbours directly facing first floor windows, window 2 on the earlier diagram. This relationship is considered acceptable. There would be reasonable separating distances, and in any event, the privacy screen would be included at the first floor rear windows on the proposed property. Also, the boundary treatment is yet to be determined. It would be a condition of consent. This is the view from the neighbour's gable window, shown as window 1 on the plan. Whilst the distance to the proposed ground floor would be less than 21 metres, this view is clearly at an angle and is obscured by part of number 7's garden. The existing vegetation provides significant screening of the site. There would also be tree planting in the proposed garden area, providing further mitigation. Officers do not consider this to represent a material loss of privacy. Clearly, the relationship with the neighbouring properties could change if the property were to be extended. For this reason, officers consider it necessary to recommend that permitted development rights are withdrawn for any extension or outbuildings as a condition of consent, should members be minded to approve this.
Thank you, Simon.
Just to summarise the report, we maintain the scheme before the committee has adequately addressed the site constraints and it's considered acceptable in terms of its visual relationship to the surrounding built form, and it wouldn't materially harm the neighbouring properties, subject to the conditions set out in the report.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Okay, right, so there was a number of speakers. First one is Steve.
Can I just clarify just for a minute, Chairman? I know 2 of these people. I know one of the speakers is going to object, and I know the applicant. When I say them, I know both of them. I don't socialise with either of them, but if I saw them in the street, I would probably speak to them. Does that disbar me from speaking and voting?
Unless you've spoken to about this particular application, I don't think it does.
I've spoken to either of them.
It's your decision, Ken.
Well, I'm quite happy with it. I just thought I should make it now. So I know both of them anyway.
Just that you just declare that you do know them when we meet at that. As an interest that you know them.
But you can ask either as they speak, but I don't socialise with either of them.
No, that's fine.
And you haven't talked about this application.
No. Well, you can ask him that question as well, but you'll find the answer.
Right, our first, well, it says in person, but is Steve Lambert in person or online?
Online.
He's online.
And I also know Steve Lambert as well.
But you will do as a town councillor, won't you? But that's, yeah, okay.
So do I, for the record. Hello, Steve.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Lambert. You have 5 minutes from the moment you start speaking.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Steve Lambert. I'm the Deputy Clerk Planning and Project Manager of Henley Town Council, and I'm speaking on behalf of Henley Town Council's Planning Committee this evening, which has carefully looked at this application and resolved to object and make representation. Henley Town Council appreciate your planning officer's work in reviewing this application and for weighing the pros and cons alongside the changes made by the applicant. However, Henley Town Council consider this plan still tries to fit too much house onto too small a plot, and it raises serious worries about flooding, the treatment of foul drainage, and the cumulative effect on neighbours. Firstly, the impact on neighbours and local character. For Henley Town Council, this application's assessment does not accord with the local plan policy DES 6, which is meant to protect people's homes from being overlooked or overshadowed. The officer's report does agree that neighbours will lose some daylight and outlook, especially at numbers 7 and 9 Cromwell Road and 22 Western Road. Henley Town Council's view is that while the 25-degree angle is technically met in the drawings, when the light is gone in this context, it is gone forever. And while we appreciate the balance and weighting comments made by your planning officer, for Henley Town Council and the neighbours, this is an important factor in a narrow plot like this, where changes like this will be keenly felt. The house as set out in the plans would be too tall and too close to others, making it look and feel cramped. The officer report notes initial disquiet in paragraph 7.5 on the size and mass proximity, and we note the amendments made to the application narrowing the dwelling by 150 millimetres and reposition it 300 millimetres away from the boundary line of number 9. The depth and the projection to the rear has also been reduced across all stories by 300 to 400 millimetres. With the size and mass and location, the officer's report in paragraph 7.7 acknowledges that individual changes are perceived to be minor by some respondents to the consultation. And while Henley Town Council welcome condition 12 in partially withdrawing permitted development rights to prevent extension around buildings, Henley Town Council remains one of those respondents to the application that consider the changes to be exceptionally minor as to have made no discernible difference. In addition, it's also Henley Town Council's view that this application clashes with policies DES 1, DES 2 and local plan and policy SD 3 on page 41 of the joint Henley-Harpston neighbourhood plan, which say all new homes should fit in with the character of the area. Our second concern is the drainage and flooding. The site is already known to be at risk from surface water flooding, and while several drainage reports have been written and acknowledged in 7.25 to 7.27, and we acknowledge a condition 8 that any variation to the approval drainage details must have written prior approval from the local planning authority, there's still no clear backup plan should the drainage system fail or simply not work. What happens then? Where does the water go? Who fixes it? Henley Town Council are dismayed that this appears to have a let's leave it to enforcement or others post-build to resolve approach, and this concerns us and sets an unwelcome precedent. With foul waste being pumped uphill and no warning or monitoring in place as a condition tried and tested, this is storing up concerning issues not just for future residents but for neighbours too. Without a solid backup plan, this scheme doesn't, in our view, and doesn't meet local plan EP policy EP4, which says new homes must not increase flood risk, or policy DES 8, which requires sustainable design. As a result, Henley Town Council asks that the committee refuse this application or delay its determination until a tested drainage backup plan is put in place. Each small infill development like this one slowly changes the look and feel of Cromwell Road. Neighbourhood Plan Policy H4, page 54, supports new homes where they match the scale and spacing of nearby properties. In Henley Town Council's view, this application does not do so. To be clear, Henley Town Council supports new housing when it is well designed and fits in the town and within policies set out in its neighbourhood plan. The plan in our view is too thank you. The plan in our view is too cramped, it's too risky on drainage and too hard on the neighbours. We therefore ask the committee to refuse the application, or if it is minded to agree the officer's recommendation, that a further condition is applied to ensure that proper drainage plans, in particular for foul water where the system fails, that an actionable plan or mitigation strategy is implemented. Thank you, Chair and Councillors, for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Richie, any questions? I see none, so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I have a couple of objectors, Andrew Gadsby and Nick Walden. Right. You have 5 minutes between you.
Yeah, I've got right.
Yeah, I've got.
Andrew is going to speak and I will answer any questions to 7 Cromwell Road. Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Your 5 minutes starts when you start speaking.
Thank you very much. Nick and I represent the 4 neighbours directly affected by the overbearing nature of Mr. Braithwaite's proposed 3-storey new build on Cromwell Road. The slide you can see here is derived from pages 55 and 6 of the Planning Officer's report and illustrates our key concerns, which I will talk through. This is an extremely narrow plot. It's only 6.3 metres wide, which is significantly narrower than the 18A, which is alluded to, which is at 6.7 metres. The plot has a complex compound slope. It's not just one way. It falls around 2.5 metres across its narrow 6.3 metre width and 5 metres down to the slab level of the houses on Western Road below. The impact of this development on all 4 neighbours is significant. It is overbearing on those below and unacceptably close and disruptive for those on either side. To the houses on Western Road, this development appears as tall as a 4-storey structure, with large patio doors on the ground floor looking directly into their bedroom windows. The design guide is clear. For developments that are back-to-back and overbearing, there must be a minimum separation of 21 metres plus screening. The actual distance, according to the plans, is less than 19 metres. Planning Officer suggests that this should be acceptable to us because planting in a neighbour's garden might obscure the view. But the design guide allows no such discretion. It requires 21 metres plus screening. Every other back-to-back build between Western and Cromwell meets or exceeds the 21 metre rule. This should be no exception. Notice that the proposed building extends 3.5 metres beyond the rear of the existing houses on Cromwell Road. It's this large 2-storey projection that breaks the 21 metre rule and also takes daylight from the main living areas in both neighbours. The applicant's daylight report wrongly describes several affected rooms as non-habitable. They are in fact main living areas. We saw the kitchen, for example. We raised this with the case officer, but the report has not been corrected. Whilst the foundation depth is not strictly a planning matter, the committee should note that the construction will require excavation at least 4 metres below the street level and less than 2 metres from both neighbours' external house walls. The applicant states, the basement retaining walls are designed to respect a 45-degree line to neighbouring properties, so that retaining structure during construction is not required. There is no demonstration of the validity of this statement, and we cannot see that it is correct. This is also an area known for subsidence, as stated by the planning officer. Drainage, as Steve has pointed out, is a major concern. Due to the sloping site, the foul sewage will be pumped, and the applicant's own drainage report helpfully states, in the event of a power or pump failure, foul sewage flooding could occur in the properties below. Very nice. Notice that the proposed soakaway, shown there, it sits close to the boundary of Western Road with the exceedance route flowing directly down into the gardens and houses below. And yet a population test was carried out. However, it was undertaken during the dry spell earlier this year, when rainfall was 70% less than average. The report itself warns seasonal changes could alter results. Thus, flooding risk from this development falls on the neighbours, not the applicant. This is a difficult and unsuitable site for such an intensive build. At no point has Mr. Braithwaite consulted those most affected or addressed any of our concerns. Finally, I'd like to quote from the planning officer's notes from the 1973 application, which is actually described in your pack for this same site. Site inadequate to satisfactorily accommodate a dwelling. Cramped form of development, out of character with existing and detrimental to the residential and visual amenities of the adjoining houses. I believe that conclusion remains entirely true today. Please support our request to refuse permission for this overbearing and inappropriate development. Thank you, councillors, very much for listening.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Committee, have we got any questions?
Stand silence.
Yes, councillor Gordon Green.
So, I mean, this may be more relevant to the question to the officer, but I'll just check with the drainage issues. At the moment, there's just soak away. There's not any storage capacity.
So at the moment, it's a vegetation plot. So there were before this application, there were a lot of trees on it which absorbed all the water. Those trees have mainly been removed. As you saw, it looked like a wasteland. So yeah, but there's a big cherry tree that's absorbing all of the stuff. And since the trees have been removed, we've noticed that there is more water coming down towards our rear garden already. What the soakaway will in fact do is it will deliver water even quicker from the 40% of the pot that effectively becomes impermeable to that soakaway, which is close to the boundary, and then it's going to come straight down. And the percolation test is completely invalid because it was done in the drought.
And also, what is your soil there? What do you sit on? Is it chalk? Is it clay? Is it?
I don't know, Simon might have a better view.
So we'll go back.
Do you know? Well, I don't know how I'd describe it, to be honest.
Well, I think there's quite a lot of infill around there, actually. But there'll be a chalk base at some level, and then there will be clay. But I don't know the exact details of that. That's possibly in the documentation somewhere.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rich, for your presentation. Is there anyone else got any questions?
Can I just ask one question? Which was said by the plan officer, the building opposite 18A.
Yeah.
What was that before it was built on?
It was a garage.
It was.
Yeah, it was a garage.
And on the site between 7 and 9 there, is that a garage there?
There was an old asbestos garage that was demolished, I would say about 10 to 15 years ago. I mean, I think the fundamental difference between 18A and 7 to 9 is that 18A is built into the hill, whereas this is built out of the hill, and that raises completely different issues to my mind.
Good, thank you. Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Very quick question. You've shown the soakaway there as being largely within the neighbour's land.
No. There's the boundary, and the soakaway. This is where the development is. So it is in Mr. Braithwaite's land.
Okay.
But it's closer to our boundary than it is his house.
The blue arrow is the exceedance route.
That's the exceedance route.
Is where if there is a failure.
Yeah. So where you've got the word soakaway is where the soakaway is.
Yes,
correct.
Yes.
Correct.
I understand. Thank you.
Yes.
You're just indicating it. Okay.
Yeah, and the exceedance route actually came from the drainage plan, helpfully.
Right, thank you. Let's move on.
Thank you so much, councillors.
Yeah, okay. I have the next speakers are the supporters, which are Sam Tisdale, who's the architect, and Colin Braithwaite, I believe, who's the up.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving us the time to speak. I'm Colin Braithwaite. The proposal will be hopefully, if it gets approved, be my future home. I moved to 20 Cromwell Road, across the road in 1974. I grew up at number 20 Western Road, behind the block and offset by one house in 1982, where I currently live with my 80-year-old mother. I'm her support network. I'm trying to create a long-term home for myself. I'm no property developer. I've lived in Henley for 6 decades. I'm a contributing member of the community. It's a key figure in getting the skate park built, raising £250,000. In the past 15 months, we've worked closely with your planning team, listened to and acted on all their advice and adjusted our proposals accordingly. I respect my current and future neighbours, they're good people. If please support me in my efforts to build a modest home for myself. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Sam Tisler, I'm the architect. I know I've got limited time, but I think I'll just zoom out to begin with. And I think the principle of development is not contentious. It's been supported since pre-app advice, and we've been through several pre-apps and revisions. I think it's worthwhile remembering that infill development is fundamentally more sustainable than building on greenfield sites. Cities should become denser. Otherwise, we end up with a sort of suburban sprawl, which matter you've already discussed today in other schemes, building on greenfield sites. So it's important that we can build within cities. We do understand that building in cities causes concern for neighbours. It is an area site. It is close to neighbouring houses. I think we have submitted a lot of specialist reports, and we have also adapted the design. You heard from the Henley Town Council member who said that we'd narrowed it. We've also lowered the ridge by 70 centimetres. And so I would kind of dispute whether that this is a small change. Just quickly running through kind of 5 key issues. The first is structural stability. It's on chalk. We've had a detailed site investigation, so that is boreholes, and geotechnical engineers looking at it. This is all standard stuff. The engineers we work with are highly respected. They, for example, designed the bridge to Tintagel. There are no particularly onerous structural issues with building it. That's not to say there aren't issues, and you have to be careful and protect neighbours' homes. Obviously, the last thing we want to do is damage any neighbour's property. It would be our liability. Next is flood risk, and I would just ask that you look at the technical reports that have been submitted. So we, as part of the original site investigation, we did a percolation test, which is putting water into a hole drilled into the ground. That showed a result. We were then, however, asked to do a test of BRE standards, which is normally reserved for much larger housing schemes. That analyses very carefully how the water drains away. The soakaway is then designed for a 100-year storm event. It has a 50% capacity in addition. This again, there's a detailed report. It's technical, but there's a high level of safety within that design, as is now required by legislation. So it's all been checked and signed off. That extra percolation test was requested and carried out. Rights of light. Again, it's a technical issue. There's a 26-page document. It's sorry. Okay. I can answer questions about it. It's not saying that there's no loss of light to neighbours. It's saying the loss of light is not to a level that prevents you from granting planning permission. There is another stage to that further on. Privacy and overlooking, again, I've got run out of time. Please ask me questions about that. Massing and height. There's various diagrams which have been presented to you by the neighbours, and we carefully checked all of those, and we presented our own diagrams based on professionally measured surveys.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, okay. Lucy, any questions? Councillor Sadler, very quick.
Firstly, I've never heard of Henley referred to as a city before, but
okay.
But that's fine. Thanks for giving me. That's fine. Thanks for all the technical stuff. It's very interesting. One of the things that was brought up on the objective side was this business of building within 2 meters of the existing dwellings. Are you at all worried about that? I mean, you talk very well about your technical expertise, bridges and so forth. How do you feel about being within that very short distance of existing buildings, which, you know, I don't know how deep the footings are of that, but you got to dig some serious deep footings for this building by the looks of it.
Yeah, so it's not my technical expertise, even though I have quite a lot of experience of building basements, but it's the structural engineers who are in charge of that, and also the contractor. So I suppose I'd give you an example of a basement being constructed under an existing house in a terrace, and now that is challenging. So you have to support the existing house, prevent your neighbours' houses from falling down. That is carried out all the time, and there are various ways of doing it. So I would say, yes, it requires making sure that you're supporting your neighbours' houses. But is it unusual or impossible, or prevent you causing a kind of an unacceptable risk? No, it's not. And it's also useful for the neighbours to know that generally the issues about building close to properties are controlled by the Party Wall Act, which allows you to appoint your own structural engineers, surveyors, inspect things. It wouldn't be the case here, I wouldn't expect, but in some building projects, you measure the movement of the adjoining property, and if it, for example, moves more than 3 millimeters, then you have to stop work. So that would not happen here, because it's not that tends to happen in more of a very high value properties in central London. So what I'm trying to say is I totally understand the issues and the concerns, but this is standard. It just doesn't cause any undue problems.
Any further questions?
I have one.
Can I go to Councillor Arlott?
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question on the proposed width of the proposal. I know we've got a scale here on page. This one's even smaller than the one before. There it is. Is that 51?
51, yeah.
Okay, on page 51, I'm just looking at the front elevation there, which shows at the bottom part, it shows what could be probably a couple of meters and a meter on the left. Have you got any specific sizes, how far you are from each boundary?
I don't want to say the wrong thing, but so I can't give you an exact dimension off the top of my head. We would be able to find them for you, of course. On the looking at the rear elevation,